welcome to the Tea and a Buddy podcast with me, Dominic.
And me, Erica.
A slightly different topic today. Well, actually, a completely different topic. A completely different topic.
Slightly, completely.
Because we've been talking about royal family and everything before. And,
yeah. We've talked about all the other villains. So.
All the other villains. Well, this one's about, this is about the trope of British actors playing villains in American films.
Yeah.
And how widespread that used to be. I don't know if it's so much today, really.
I don't know. I kind of think it's still
It's still a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think it, because I was looking up this website and, they talk about it, about all the tropes, and it is a trope. It's like,
Tell us what a trope is, first of all.
It's like an idiom that's...
Tell us what an idiom is.
It's like a stereotype, basically.
Right, yeah.
It's a type.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really a stereotype because it's completely true when you look at it. Like, evil British guy in films.
Yeah.
That's a thing throughout history. You've got all these actors who've played British villains, and they all speak with a thing. And, I guess it started with, like, The Jungle Book, really, like, as like a popular, like every Disney villain really is British, isn't he?
British.
Or he's voiced by an established British actor who's like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like that,
I
thing.
guess so, yeah.
And it largely comes down to, like, the isolationism in the US of, like, the media and making their movies, and, America's the hero, America's the big hero.
Yeah.
And all the
Captain America.
Captain America, Captain America. As our nephew used to call him, because he's not really into him anymore. Not Captain America anymore, no. Captain America, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Superheroes, they're usually big, strong American, corn-fed. As we were looking at, corn-fed Americans, it's like, I'm going to save the day.
Yeah.
And all, it's like, if you speak to the regular American, they don't think they have an accent.
Yeah.
Them personally, and no other American really has an accent. It's just, it's just how we speak,
Right, yeah.
It's just how you speak. And So casting a villain, it's got to be an outsider, he sounds a bit different, and inflection of another place, and outsider, that means he's untrustworthy.
It represents
like
the fact that they're an outsider. Okay. Yeah. So, but why do you think they're usually British? They're usually either British or
because
Russian.
Then people, well, no, the Brit, even if they're supposed to be Russian, they're British. It's a British accent. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. It's like, even in, like, I'm gonna say, well, they weren't really villainous in Hunt for Red October, but there was still that Cold War thing. If like those 70s, 80s Cold War movies, like Hunt for Red October, Sean Connery, Tim Curry, and others were in it. They had Alec Baldwin playing what is his name? Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
And so, he's the American hero, and then of course, they started off speaking Russian in it, and then there was like a device that was like, okay, they're going to start speaking English now with British accents, So, but they're all Russian still.
Yeah.
And, I guess it's the same sort of thing for Die Hard with Hans Gruber. He was supposed to be German, but Alan Rickman was,
yeah,
playing him,
he
was kind of playing him with a German accent, but still,
You just said Tim Curry, and it just made me think of Clue.
Yeah.
Most everyone
Rocky
in
Horror
Clue
Picture Show he was a villain in, too.
Most everyone in Clue
We'll talk about
was American, but then, what was that? Like, one of the scenarios had him. He was the butler.
He was the British butler, which is like, that's another trope.
The butler did it.
The butler did it. And it's another trope that the butlers are always English in American films. It's like, oh, yes, sir, because,
Yeah.
And it's always that
Why do you
accent.
think... Why
it's
do you
always
think
that accent with, like, oh, yes, sir, I don't know.
Is it? It's like, yeah, it's not like a...
Well, there's two flavours, actually, of the villain.
Okay.
it's the more refined, like, Shere Khan type.
Right.
Who's, like, scheming a mastermind. And then there's, like...
Like Tywin Lannister.
Like Tywin Lannister, like Charles Dance, who played a villain in... Actually, I'll have to add that to my list for the next podcast, which will come out on Thursday, about all these actors who played it. So it's like a 2-part series here. Tywin Lannister, and then you've got the... I'm trying to think. Jason Statham type. Who are like a bit cockney, a bit rough around here, diamond geezer, you know, they speak a bit like that.
Yeah.
And they're like the head villain, and they're like, yeah, gonna do him, you know, like
yeah,
gangster, you know.
That would be more like, well, yeah,
like cockney, you know, the cockney.
But that would be more like in a British movie. That's the kind of accent the villain would have.
Yeah, I guess so. But in a British movie, really, like, the villains, I can't really think where they're from. If we have like a trope, like, oh, they're always from Russia, they're always from Germany, they're always French. Yeah, you know, it's maybe there is, but you know, like over here, it's always the villain's always British, and it's not because of the Revolutionary War. You'd think
what is it? What else is it though?
But it's because Britain represents all the other countries in the world
without directly offending
without directly offending
countries, I guess.
Other countries. Yes, basically,
it's
I think that's what it is.
It's like they're white,
and it's
they're
also
British.
It's the whole playing to the understand your accent. It's like if it was a Russian guy playing, you know.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to understand.
I can't understand him.
Or they'd have to
take him away,
him, and then people would have to read.
We'd have to read, and I don't like reading.
They'd have to read.
God's sake.
They'd have to read then captions or
reading
subtitles
captions
or
subtitles. I can't read this. Just find me a guy with a British accent who can speak proper British.
Okay, that's why. Yeah, because I always thought, like, why are they always British? Is it because, like, we have some kind of deep-rooted thing about the Revolutionary War?
Well, research. I don't know where this research was conducted, I guess over here, is the reason that the accent lends itself well to the particular qualities that make for a compelling movie villain. A cocktail of traits more nuanced than just pure evil.
Right.
Speaking in the received pronunciation accent, which is the posh accent. Right. You know, which is what most all villains have, all British villains anyway, you know. It's like, you know, makes people appear more educated, intelligent, competent, physically attractive, and higher socioeconomic class. You know, like all these villains, like Dr. Evil, they've all got doctorates, you know, Dr. Robotnik or whatever, you know.
They're like, very intelligent
They're
people.
very intelligent. They've got their degrees, and they're gonna use their degrees to take over the world. You know, it's that kind of like,
right.
Like, well, there you go.
Pinky and the Brain.
He was kind of like a British kind of.
No, was he? I think so, Brain. I think Pinky was the British one.
The British one, but the Brain was like, what are we gonna do, Pinky?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do, Pinky? We're gonna take over the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, if you put them together, then they'd sound. I think they did in one episode, didn't they? They put Pinky and the Brain together. I seem to remember, and you know, he was like a super villain.
Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah, but it's that kind of thing. Like they were always scheming and plotting to take over the like Blofeld in the Bond films.
Yeah.
And, like that super villain. You know, I think that's what it kind of comes from. Is like. Those kind of like the Bond films and everything. That's why they make all these like villains in these like action films be British. Yeah, because it's like, oh yes, you know, because the James Bond is like the Britain's favorite hero, so
yeah,
it's got to be that kind of thing. But on the other hand, in this research, received pronunciation speakers are also generally considered less trustworthy, kind, sincere, and friendly than speakers of non-received pronunciation accents, you know.
Oh, yeah.
When you put two together, you get someone with a fierce intellect and low morals. And perfect combo for a fictional bad guy.
Wait, isn't received pronunciation what the Queen
It's
speaks?
kind of, yes. I mean, though that's kind of like super posh anyway. But yeah, that's another thing with, you know, like villains and stuff. We'll talk about more in the other podcast, you know, like that kind of, like, you know, speaking like that, you know, there's like always like the British character is like in the film, the token Brit.
Yeah.
That's what they call it, you know, it's like the token British character who's always the butler, and he's always like Terry Thomasing it up, if you know what I mean by that.
I do not
Terry
know
Thomas
what you mean.
made a career out of being the English guy in films.
And who is he?
He was a comedic actor in the 50s and 60s. I think he did... no, he didn't. I don't know if he did a Carry On film, actually. He might have been in one. But, you know, he always had that kind of, like, over-the-top English style. He had a gap between his teeth. It was comedic films he always did, but he always played the same character in all the films. The Foppish, the Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines he was in. I don't think he played... I think he might have played a villain in a couple of them, but... Really, it was kind of like, you know, tally-ho, oh yes, pip-pip, cheerio. You know, that kind of English guy. And the people who are doing, you know, like Americans who do any kind of like, oh, tally-ho, tip-top, oh yes, old boy, old bean. Yeah. They're doing an impression of him, basically.
Okay,
Because that's how he was in every movie he was ever in. Oh, don't you like English? Oh, yes, oh. And it's like that kind of stereotyped character is filtered down, you know, like you see like in like these movies, I don't know, where they go to England, you know, like, I don't know, an American movie, you know, there's like 3 Men and a Little Lady and all that, you know, they've always got like Aunt Petunia's character, she was always like, oh, you know, it was like over the top. It's like, you know, there are people like that in England, but they're very rare. You come across them. You know, like, over-the-top English, you know, it's like, oh, we're English, we don't show affection, we only show affection to dogs and...
Like John Cleese in National Lampoon's European Vacation.
No, it wasn't John Cleese. It was another Monty Python member.
Who was it?
Eric Idle.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, like,
yes,
right. Like he was like playing the stereotypical English guy there. John Cleese is known for it now, the English gentleman in his films and stuff like that, you know. With the bowler hat, and, you know, he looks all very, like, you know...
No, sorry to interrupt you, but no, I was just thinking you were talking about going all the way back to, like, the 50s or something in film. And I was thinking, even in silent movies, like, the bad guy...
You could sense the British
accent. He would
accent.
have a top hat, he would have, like, a cape, maybe, and the twirly mustache, and he just felt foreign. He just felt like he was not American, you know.
Well,
he's there tying her to the train tracks or whatever.
So, yeah.
And he feels like he's a British guy. He feels like he has an accent. You know what I mean?
He has an accent. He's like, yeah, twirls the moustache. He's like,
no, seriously, you're looking at that and you're not thinking this is not an American guy. This villain in this film. He's not Joe from around the corner, you know, he's foreign. He's like, oh, he's wearing a top hat. He must be British.
He's wearing a little top hat and he's all posh and he's all well dressed and he's like, oh yes.
And it's like, that guy is not American.
That guy, I'll find out about that guy.
So it's like existed even since silent film.
I guess so. Yeah, maybe that's the thing, you know, because there's like that stereotype like, oh, that everyone who's English is more well turned out than the common American guy, you know, and they're always like, oh, they're stuffy. That's another trope. Every English guy you meet is in a film is all stuffy and nothing can be changed and which that stereotype is broke when you watch a British-made production because it's very like, you know, it's kind of some of it is streets ahead of what's being made over here, you know?
Yeah.
There's like a lot of like themes that Americans are kind of like American producers and outlets and media stuff are afraid to go near because it might offend the audience. You know? Whereas they don't really have that problem in the UK. They just get it out, and if it offends you, then sorry. You know? I mean, there's people who are going to be offended by it anyway, but yeah, you know, it's like less of a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's like that kind of stuffy kind of like characterization of the British in films, you know, like, oh, and they're always over the top.
Yeah.
Extreme over the top to like, see, you know, like, I am very British.
Yeah.
Type, you know. I mean, to get away from like the villain kind of trope.
Well,
you
no,
know,
even the villains are quite British.
Over the top,
really.
over the top. Yes, you know.
If we're talking about like
going to take over the world, and
comic book or spy movies or whatever, they always
Lord Smelly Cat. He was another villain. They
always live in like some big old house.
It's a haunted like
they
house.
They usually have a butler.
They have a butler.
They usually have like a library with a hidden room. It's like
they did I think it was like a Super Bowl commercial for Jaguar like years ago where they made fun of it. Ben Kingsley was in it, Tom Hiddleston, I think Mark Strong. Because Mark Strong pretty much has got the monopoly on British villains in American movies. And, the Ben Kingsley is... Because Ben Kingsley, I think, played a villain in Iron Man 3. Or something, yeah.
Yeah, he's
it's just like, oh, yes, and why are we always the bad guys in films? And, it's like, it's on YouTube, I think.
But, yeah, you never see, like, the British bad guy. He's never, like... living in a duplex, driving like a Honda or something. He's always got like a Jaguar, or he's being driven in a Rolls Royce or something, and he's always got this.
He's got copious amounts of money, and he's just like, I think I'll take over the world. I'm bored of this.
He's got like a laboratory in one floor of his house.
Yes,
he's like where he does his experiments.
My experiments. Yes, it's like very super villainy, It's all very super villainy, and it's just kind of like the ones who are just like, the bad guys, like the normal bad guys who are played by Brits. They're like Vinnie Jones. They get Vinnie Jones. They get Jason Statham in to play them.
Yeah.
Because they look like goons and like knuckleheads.
Yeah.
Who are just like, oh, those knuckleheads. Let's just get them.
They're kind of the same type of people who in America would be played by like, I don't know, The Rock or Vin Diesel or somebody like that.
Yes, but and it's still in American movies, they don't want to portray themselves as the bad guy in anything.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Well, The Capture, which was a British production, it's like talking about the deep fake and all that in the video, and it was pretty good.
It was a TV series.
It was a TV series. It was like 3 or 4 parts, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah.
Oh, no. It was about 8 parts or something it was,
yeah. Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, the villains in that were American. Ron Perlman played the main villain, and I think Famke Janssen was in it too. And it was it was kind of like the grey area villains. They were working with British intelligence, and well, if you haven't seen it, then don't want to spoil it for you. But that was a pretty good kind of nod. It's like, oh, finally, there you go. The bad guys are American. It's like
because
they never really do that in British films. They don't like specifically cast an American as the bad guy.
No, they're usually...
Because there's no really British action films, I mean, discounting James Bond, because that's kind of like a worldwide thing now.
Yeah.
He just happens to be working for MI6 and British and all that,
Let's think like, okay, Johnny English. I know that was a silly film, but who played the bad guy in those films?
It was an American guy, John Malkovich.
Okay.
And he was playing a Frenchman.
Well, there you go.
Like Pascal Sauvage, and he was playing it over the top too. He was like, English, that stupid English man.
Yeah,
He was playing it over the top. So that's why that was funny, because it was like making a dig at the French and everything.
That's funny. Okay, so maybe what else? Let's think of some other series. Yeah, because usually in the British television series,
Timothy Dalton played the Neville Sinclair in The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
He was doing it with like his British accent, but he was a German spy.
Yeah.
It was set during the war. He also, funnily, Hot Fuzz, there you go, he also played the villain in that, Simon Skinner. But he was
I was just saying, like, who are the villains in British things? We kind of touched on this earlier. But
the same type of villain. I think it's the same sort of
It's just British people.
It's just
isn't it?
kind of British people. Yeah, it's the same sort of people. Like they live in a mansion and they're like evil, and it's just like, oh, that guy up the road.
They have a butler who
Lord
does...
Snooty. Yeah, he's been up to something.
Yeah,
to stop him.
They have a butler who does their bidding and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, there you go. Like Princess Diaries, Disney. It's like Disney again, going back to that Disney thing. Like there's it's all American princesses, all American accented princesses who wanted to be princesses and all that, you know.
Yeah. Meghan Markle.
Meghan Markle. And, you know, they've got the villainous royal family who are scheming there. You know? So very scheming and villainous, you know. But yeah, you know, like Princess Diaries 2.
We're going deep here.
John Rhys Davis was the villain in that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the uncle to Chris Pine's character.
We're going to talk more about specific villains and specific films, but yeah, it's just so funny how
it's just so funny how a trope begins and where does it come from, you know? Because I mean, really, you know, since I've been over here, it's kind of opened my eyes because I was like, oh yeah, I didn't really realize that there were so many British guys as bad guys in films over here.
In American films, yeah.
And I was thinking, yeah, it might be because of the Revolutionary War. It's just like an in-joke and all that. But really, it's more to do with the fact that, they're not representing Britain, really. They're not British. They're just a British accented Russian or a German or a Frenchman or a... you know, whatever, another white person, really,
yeah.
You know?
Or even if they are representing Britain, I think it's just an easy choice. You're foreign. You're foreign. But you're not going to be offended by the implication that you're villainous.
Yes. I mean, I don't think... I mean, I'm sure there's people who've thrown a fit about it, you know, in Britain. They're like, they're always casting British people as the bad guys in American movies. And we're not bad people.
Well, no, because the thing about it is, here in America, and I'm potentially going to trigger some people with this comment.
Yeah.
But here in America, like, if you cast a Hispanic person, a Muslim, a black person,
yes,
a Russian person, an Italian person, whatever, if you cast any ethnic person, any non-white, person of British origin
as a villain,
you're gonna have some group up in arms about the representation of their ethnicity. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you're trying to say we're all
Italians are mafia and all that kind of thing. Yeah. But it's like,
so I think it's like, let's just cast Daniel Craig, or it's not a good example.
Well, Daniel Craig, I think he has played a villain in a few things, actually. I mean, really, that's kind of like the bread and butter of, like, if you come to Hollywood, you're gonna, you know, if I was a British actor now and I was, you know, I'd been working as like a leading man in British productions in Britain.
Yeah.
And I wanted to crack the American market, and I come over here, the first thing I'd be off is, there's this blockbuster or this superhero movie. They're looking for the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay.
Yeah,
because really you got to make that role your own, really. And you know, really everybody remembers the villain from Die Hard, you know, even though again he was playing a German and everything, but it was Alan Rickman. Everybody remembers like Shere Khan from the Jungle Book and Scar from The Lion King, you know.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
and of course, Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
Pretty much a lot of actors on that were British anyway, because they were filming in Britain in the original trilogy, but the Empire...
Well, you don't mean Darth Vader, though.
Well, Darth Vader actually was portrayed by 2 British actors.
Well, the
James
voice
James Earl Jones's voice wasn't overtly American either.
No, I suppose not.
But I mean, we can talk about that again, you know.
Yeah. So I think that'll wrap this episode up. We're going to continue this discussion, though, in Thursday's podcast, where we're going to go more in depth with specific actors who portray villains in different movies, and we'll talk more about each individual person and their portrayal of, you know, whatever.
Yes.
We want to mention, though, really quickly before we wrap today's podcast up,
before we tottle off,
that we have filmed our first YouTube video. Well,
yes,
it's not true. I keep saying that. It's not really true, because we did the one. Well, you filmed the one that when
the British Emporium. Yeah, that one. Yeah, we're slowly coming on to YouTube. We're slowly getting enough. But I'm actually in this one.
Yeah,
you can actually see my face and my
I'm not, because
my lips moving.
I don't wanna. Also, like,
she likes being behind the camera, and she was sick and still kind of is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to work up my
I like being on camera.
To go on camera.
I'll play the villain.
Yeah.
For in your production.
But yeah, so we filmed that. We were inspired by a BuzzFeed episode that we saw where, and if you follow us on social media, you'll have seen us post about it quite a while back, actually, where it was British people trying different brands of tea to see if they could tell which brand was which. And I went into watching that believing that they were not going to be able to, and sure enough, I was proved correct. So I was like, I'm always giving Dominic a hard time that all black tea tastes the same. It doesn't matter if you get it in Britain. It doesn't matter if you get it in America. It all tastes the same. Brand from brand from brand. They all taste the exact same. You put sugar in them, you put milk in them, they taste the same. He doesn't say so. British people across the internet do not believe that. British tea is so much better.
We can discern the brands.
British tea is so much better.
Which one is which.
And certain brands are better than other brands. Okay, so anyway, that is what we based our first YouTube video on. We happen to have a few different teas here in the house. So I was just like, you know what? Let's see if Dominic can, in fact, tell each brand from each brand.
Yeah.
And let's see which brand is his favorite. And so you can watch that.
You can watch that, and you can watch me. Yeah, you can watch the results of that.
Yeah, that'll come out tomorrow on our YouTube channel. So if you are not subscribed to us on YouTube, which, I mean, you know, we're not going to hold it against you if you're not. We're just getting started on there. Like I said, this is our first real kind of video.
So it's a real video with people in it and everything.
Yeah.
With real actors.
But if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. It would help us immensely. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and leave us a comment and let us know.
Yes, go and have a look at it.
Yeah, let us know how you think we did. Yeah, we're excited. So
we're excited to see what you think of our foray into videography.
Yeah, so you can find us at, I think, Tea and a Buddy.
Tea and a Buddy, yeah. Tea and a Buddy.
I think it's Tea and a Buddy on YouTube.
And I mean, there's going to be links to it on the website and on social media and everything. So
our website, of course, is teaandabuddy.com. So
and our Instagram is TBuddy, and Twitter is TBuddy. Everything is a Tea and a Buddy.
Tea and a Buddy, or just T-Buddy. So, but you can find all the links to everything on our website. So that's the easiest place to find where you're trying to go.
Find where you're trying to go, yeah. Or something.
Thank you
Should have got a British actor in to do that.
Thank you so much for listening. I promise that at some point in the future my voice will stop sounding like this, but
when the cedar goes,
we don't know. We don't know. See,
when that's the bad guy.
The cedar.
This is like a superhero movie we're living in, and the cedar is like the bad.
So it's floating through the atmosphere, twisting its mustache and speaking with a British accent. Oh my God. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.